Welcome everyone who is joining us tonight for the City of Santa Ana Community Budget Virtual Meeting. We're going to wait about a minute or so before we start the meeting so we can allow as many attendees to connect, and we'll go over some short instructions on how to participate. Thank you. So we'll be starting the meeting shortly, and we appreciate you being here. "30 seconds more and we'll be starting." See that we have more people connecting, which is great. Okay, well, I think we're ready to get started, team. Once again, we want to welcome everyone to tonight's City of Santa Ana Community Budget Meeting. And we are going to get started with some instructions. Frank, can you go over the instructions while I take this call?
Hello, everyone. So welcome to the budget meeting. Today we have the ability to host a meeting in 2 different languages, Spanish and Vietnamese. And so I'm actually going to invite both of our interpreters to introduce themselves. They're going to go over some of the instructions. And so I'm actually going to have Tuyet Jenny Vu start with the introduction in Vietnamese.
Xin kính chào quý vị. Hôm nay chào mừng đến quý vị đến buổi họp cộng đồng hôm nay. Xin quý vị nếu quý vị muốn nghe tiếng Việt thì xin quý vị bấm vô cái chỗ mà có cái hình vòng cầu đó thì quý vị có bấm vô tiếng Việt, hoặc là quý vị muốn nghe tiếng Mỹ thì quý vị có bấm vô tiếng Anh. Xin cảm ơn quý vị.
Thank you, Tia. And I'm going to have Gloria, right?
And Nancy.
Nancy, I'm sorry. Nancy.
No worries. Sí, hola a todos, bienvenidos. Tenemos la interpretación en español disponible. Para seleccionar su idioma, si está usando una diapositivo móvil, un celular, por favor toque su pantalla, seleccione los 3 puntitos, el idioma de interpretación, español y done, o finalizar su opción, seleccione finalizado. Si está usando una computadora, verá un globo ubicado en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Haga clic en el globo, seleccione español y seleccione silenciar el audio original y listo. And for those that are going to be listening to the English channel, instructions are going to be very easy. When they activate the interpretation, all you got to do is look at on your computer on the globe at the bottom of your screen, click interpretation and English and done. And if you're using a mobile device, you'll see the 3 little dots at the bottom of your screen. You'll select interpretation, English, and done. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Frank. I can continue. So we are going to all select, for the English speakers, we'll select the English language as Frank turns on the language icon. Okay. All right, Frank, do you want to go ahead? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so here are the different ways to participate in the meeting. There are 2 ways. You can either raise your hand or type your question. As you see there, there's a raise the hand function. If you do have a question, it'll alert us to choose you once we get to the Q&A section. And you can also type your question in the chat box, and you'll be able to one, read the question, and then we'll be able to respond through there as well. And if you're dialing in, you can press *9 to raise your hand and dial *6 to unmute and speak during the meeting.
Thank you, Frank. So I want to turn it over to our budget manager, Waldo Barella, to continue the meeting. Thank you, Waldo.
Thank you, Margarita, for doing all this and coordinating this so we can have this virtual community budget meeting. Good evening, everybody. My name is Waldo Barella. I'm the budget manager here at the City of Santa Ana, and I will be conducting the presentation and be available for questions and comments. Our finance director is also present, Catherine Downs. Catherine, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. I'm Catherine Downs, and I'm the city's finance director. And Waldo and his team have worked really hard to bring you a great presentation. And we're all going to be here to answer questions after the presentation. And so I'm happy to join in on that. But other than that, it's Waldo's show tonight.
Thank you, Catherine. Also joining us is Mayor Sarmiento. Mayor Sarmiento, do you have a few words before we get started?
I do. Good afternoon or good evening to everybody. I guess we're right on the cusp of that. I wanted to just welcome everybody to this community budget meeting, and we're going to be doing this virtually. So this is kind of a throwback to our times back right in the middle of the pandemic when we were meeting virtually. So this is this is still a novel way for all of us to connect, and I think we mastered this through the through those times when we were all isolating. But it's nice to now be able to have this as a tool. I don't think this will go away, because I think these are ways that our community can connect with us virtually if they have some issues with transportation, access issues, and you all do such a great job on translation. So I want to just thank the interpreters that are on the line, because it really does make this conversation much better, much more thorough. I simply wanted to thank our staff, beginning with our city manager, Christine Ridge, and our finance director, Kat Downs, and her team. All of you do this really monumental task of what the city council has done, which is to make sure that we have public participation and direction from members of our residents to give us some guidance before we start making decisions. And I think that's been a deliberate part of this process, to put residents and the public first. And then as the council is deliberating, we can draw on your comments, draw on your opinions and your priorities. So I simply think that this is a great way to do it. Before, it was done just the opposite way. We would, kind of look at a budget and then we take it out to the public. And to me, that was just in reverse order. So I really want to, thank the staff for following through on this policy direction that I think the council had some real foresight on. I simply want to say that, it's great to be at this moment with you, because, the city is in a place, I think, that we're strong fiscally, we're stable. I know when we did our mid-year review right after the holidays, we were looking at about a $40 million surplus. We had some excess funds that we put away into our reserves. And, we have a AA credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which are all really strong indicators that we have a very well-managed city, a city that's living within its means, but at the same time delivering some very core services, in addition to ancillary services that'll transition our way out of this pandemic that we know took a toll on all of our lives. So I know in addition to that, we're looking at, and in the process of refinancing our pension obligations. We're also, looking at retiring some debt service on our jail very soon. And we're looking at, sunsetting, part of Measure X eventually. So we're forecasting for all those things. And as we go through this budget cycle, I think we, have to consider ourselves blessed because we know other communities are going through some very difficult times. I want to thank our staff and our directors in all departments for doing some real, providing some real strong leadership during that time. Because as I meet with other mayors, they have much different stories than we do. And, we have to remember that we're investing as much as ever as we have in our youth. And that is something that makes me really, really happy because I know that after this pandemic, we want our families and our children to be outside enjoying our open spaces, programming, and different services that we're going to be providing. So, I just wanted to give sort of more of a high level talk. You're going to be looking, you're going to be hearing some very specific information on some of our revived dollars that we received from the federal government and COVID relief. You're going to be looking at, Measure X and those funds, as well as, the Cannabis Public Benefit Fund. But something that's really exciting, I think, this time around, which is a tool that we haven't really implemented, and I'm so grateful and happy that we have that now, which is a budget engagement simulation tool, which we call BEST. And that is a way for you to directly, identify your priorities and share those with us through, through something that's very interactive. So I think that's going to give us all better indicia of information on, how we, need to best spend these funds, and what you all see as a priority, and what we all see as a community as priorities. So with that, I will let the experts speak on the information and allow the all of our neighbors and residents to listen and to comment and ask questions and really engage with this new tool that we have, because it really is going to be something that's going to guide our decision making when it comes to deciding on the budget. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our finance team. Everybody have a great night. I hope you appreciate the information. I know we're going to be doing this again in person at some other sites, so hopefully I'll be able to join you then. But thank you for the time. I'll turn it back over to Waldo. Waldo, the floor is yours again, my friend.
Thank you, Mayor Sarmiento. And what I always like to say is we in the budget office, we'd like to share a lot of information, but the goal of these community budget meetings is to get your input and getting your ideas on what you want to see in the city budget, so we can go ahead and share that with the city council and city manager so they can make those decisions from the dais when we come back in June. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Our community budget meetings, of course, starting today, and we've been doing a few already. Just what we're going to go over is a few things, a little bit of an update on the Revive program. Some of you may be familiar with the Revive program and those dollars that are spent. We'll also be talking a little bit about Measure X and how we're planned to spend Measure X this fiscal year. We'll take a brief overview on the general fund revenue and expenditures. We'll also look at our Cannabis Public Benefit Fund, because we get a lot of questions on how are we spending the cannabis money. So we're going to go over what the current spending is on those on that particular fund. We'll also talk about the BEST, or the Budget Engagement Simulation Tool, that Mayor Sarmiento had alluded to. It's a really great tool that we've implemented this year. And so we're really happy to utilize that tool and get people interacted with our city budget, and then provide us information on how they would prioritize some items if they were given a set of money. Then we'll also provide you some information on how to provide your opinion. How can you provide input, not just at this meeting, but there are a number of ways you can provide your input on what you would like to see on the budget. And then kind of what are our next steps going forward, and then give you an opportunity if there's any questions, but definitely comments and your input is what we want to hear. We do have one of our staff that is also listening on, and she'll be taking notes during the course of this meeting. So the Revive program, some of you may have heard of the Revive program, which was in response to getting federal dollars in response to the COVID pandemic. And the city received a huge portion from the American Rescue Plan Act, and we were allocated $128 million. The city received $64 million this past year, and we'll receive another $64 million. I believe it's coming in May. And so the city council had made some priorities based on what they had seen of what could be done with these federal dollars. So they divide up in these 5 areas, just general recovery from the pandemic, some direct assistance programs, public health and safety, and critical infrastructure, and then a little bit about city fiscal health, which is done for managing the program, making sure we're putting all the dollars in ways they can be spent, as well as new contracts, agreements, stuff like that. You need staff to go ahead and help. So I'll highlight briefly on each one of these key categories. So for the recovery from the pandemic, revived dollars that were allocated was about $7.5 million. Part of it goes to responses from the OCFA, our fire department, in response to COVID-19. There's also sanitization prevention programs, which will go in more detail, and a feasibility study on whether the city can have a public health department. That's something we're exploring and something that will be brought reports to city council on, like, this is the cost, and these are possibly things we could do if the city had its own public health department, which we currently don't. We're under the auspice of the County of Orange. So one of the things the city has been doing is these sanitation and prevention programs and cleaning a lot of certain qualified census tracts or QCT areas. And so we were allocated $2.3 million. It's a proactive enforcement to clean things that are in the right of way, such as alleys and sidewalks, and sanitize those areas. The focus was always on high traffic pedestrian areas, or where bicyclists go as well. On this map, you can see where we've done sanitization in these specific areas. Again, we can only use these federal dollars. They are restricted monies, so we can only use them in certain areas of the city, and they're highlighted in blue. Since January 2022, 4,000 locations have been cleaned by 4 crews, 3 staff members each, and each crew covers about 4 miles a day. So these dollars are being used to cover these areas that we qualify for. But of course, the city has its ongoing regular sanitization program for other areas of the city. Some direct assistance programs. So this is how to help people during the pandemic time. So there was an allocation of $29.7 million. Some went to food supply. Some went to nonprofit organizations. We had a direct assistance program where we handed out gift cards, and that was about, if I remember correctly, about $6 million that we did. So we distributed $300 gift cards to a variety of residents that qualified for the program. We also did some rent stabilization to help people who were evicted or needed help with their rent, and as well as youth violence prevention programs. So those are active, ongoing programs that we are currently doing. But you can see there's also some upcoming programs such as child daycare, after school programs, sexual assault intervention, and reentry programs. So there's a lot more programs. One of the biggest programs is our rental assistance program. The funding allocated was $36.5 million. As of this date, $25.9 million had been distributed, which leaves a remainder of over $10 million still remaining. Applications closed March 31st for new applicants, but starting in April, staff will begin recertifying all previously assisted households and provide up to 3 months. So people who had received the assistance before and after it expired, if they still need to continue the assistance and provide some monies to help with their rent, those things will be recertified and reevaluated again. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that we are recently opening up our housing choice voucher program to see if people qualify. And I just got some information yesterday that some workshops are being held. And so it's been a while since we've had this program open, and it'll open up May 2nd, and I'll run through May 31st. And there'll be a variety of locations. There's one being done today, but there'll be 6 other locations where you can find information on the housing choice voucher program. So if you need help with rent, there are ways you can do that. So you can check out our website for that as well. But that just started We'll be opening up for applications May 2nd, but information is already being conducted throughout the city at various school and community center locations. Public health and safety, we have our rapid response homeless services, or our SMART team. There was allocation of $20.3 million. We still have a lot of dollars to continue to spend. You can see there's lots of programs for parks and open space, pedestrian safety, healthy food access, upgrade of park restrooms, adding security cameras to our parks and community centers, and addition of a public health plaza to our civic center area. But our biggest thing is the SMART program, and that operates 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And this helps alleviate some of the non-emergency related calls that are more related to homelessness issues. And they're transferred to CityNet. The city has partnered with CityNet, who can provide the help and assistance that some of the homeless population need, and they're trained in that specific area. So not only does it help with the 911 response time, it also helps people that are in need of finding a place to be housed, or providing some places where they need to relocate to get back on their feet. So this graphic depicts from December 1st of 2021 through January 24th, there were 773 outreach contacts, 253 case management, and 102 street exits, and 34 COVID-19 engagements. So there have been a lot of things that have been done up to date, but these are how your dollars are going to help and provide homeless services and provide people with the assistance that is needed. Infrastructure. So there's been an allocation of $21.2 million and improving our parking structures that the city owns and the safety enhancements. But we're also, there are some projects that are either just beginning or will be underway. One of them is broadband access, to try and get internet access to all different locations. Renovations at our community centers. Also, our central main library here in the downtown area for Ross and Civic Center has been undergoing a lot of different renovation and will continue to undergo renovation. So some of those dollars are being used in that aspect. We have pedestrian mobility improvements, how people can travel around the city safely. Neighborhood safety streetlights, we still have a lot of underlit areas as well. So those dollars are being programmed for those types of services and are in a variety of different stages. Then, of course, to manage the program, you need to have contracts. You have a city attorney, draft agreements, purchasing to bid out projects that have to be spec'd out. So you have that, as well as all the accounting that is required to make sure that all the federal requirements are being met and providing updates regularly. So there's been an allocation of almost $1.2 million. And there's also been an HR component to hire needed staff to operate those programs. And so all that is under the Revive program and has been allocated. And once we get the second allocation of $64 million in May, there'll be a plan to share with residents on what the plan is to spend the rest of that allocation. One of the questions we get asked often is the Measure X, and the Measure X is a sales tax. It's an add-on sales tax of 1.5%. And it goes to programs and services such as youth, homelessness, fixing streets, and maintaining parks. And so what's built into the current budget is about $79 million. And most of that is reoccurring dollars of about $62 million, which means it's ongoing dollars every budget year. This is about how much will be spent on recurring items. But there's also one-time dollars that are being spent. So those are like projects that are being done, and that adds up to almost 17 million. And that's about 21% of those Measure X dollars. The Measure X goes on for 10 years at 1.5%, then gradually decreases to 1% in 2029, and then it'll sunset later on in 2039 and go back to just the regular sales tax of only 1%, which is what we currently collect, plus the 1.5%. So just some brief categories that we spend your Measure X dollars, that 79 million that we just shared. So you can see that some portion goes to youth services, some of it goes to fixing streets of 4.2 million, some of it addressing homelessness in a variety of ways at 9.9 million. Then our parks is about 5.2 million for a variety of park improvements and parks maintenance, parks programs. And then also a portion goes to our public safety to retain our firefighters, our OCFA, and then our police officers to maintain them and make sure that we're maintaining our safety services that the city provides. In our adopted budget, our revenues for fiscal year 2021 were amended, which means we added more money as we get more information. We've updated our sales tax and property tax, as well as some of our permits and plant check revenues. And our property tax, as you can see in the upper right-hand portion of the slide, is about $80 million. But you can also see that there's another huge portion of the Measure X dollars, which I just spoke about, of $79 million. Then we have what we call our regular sales tax of 1%, or Bradley Burns, of about $57 million. So all those dollars are made up to help support a variety of general fund services, anywhere from police and fire to parks and planning, public works, and administrative staff as well. So this gives you a snapshot of what we did at a mid-year update, and we increased our sales tax estimates at that time, and sales tax continues to trend upward. And so we are probably planning to make another update as part of our third quarter update in May. So now that we focus on the revenue side, we'll look at how do we spend our money. There's $353 million was adopted in fiscal year 2021, or 21-22, excuse me. Bulk of that goes obviously to public safety, to fire and police services. So we have about $192 million that goes to public safety. But we also have a portion of that that goes to our Parks and Recs department of $23 million, our Public Works and Planning of about $15 million each, as well as our finance department of $10 million, and then a variety of other general government services. Mayor Sarmiento also spoke about our pension debt and refinancing. So as part of that process, we originally had budgeted $47 million in our general fund category, and we've refinanced that. And so it's going to result in savings of next year of about $9.3 million savings that can be used for other purposes. And what we plan to do, and what we shared with City Council back in February, I believe, is that we're going to use those savings to offset any future pension cost increases. Because while we're saving money now, we know that in the future that will probably change. And so we want to be able to set aside a portion to go ahead and pay for future pension debts in the outer years as part of our refinancing project. One of the other questions we get is, how do we spend our cannabis public benefit fund? We spend in a variety of ways in planned expenses. This slide shows us what we spent. This was as of February, and what we've done, and we've kind of updated it a little bit here that I'd like to share. One of the things we had planned was to bring back the bookmobile, as well as staff it, and then have books and other collections and other things available. So it's my understanding the bookmobile is now here, and it's going to be planned to be rolled out sometime in the summer. And so the bookmobile will be able to travel to probably different neighborhoods and schools throughout the city, but it's something we're really excited for. We've waited a very, very long time to get the bookmobile, but it will be here in the summer of 2022. Also, as part of our youth services that it's funded, we had 500 Google Chromebooks that are available. We've had library youth tutoring. We've also had 300 mobile hotspots at both our main and New Hope Library, and a good variety of them are checked out. And so more than likely we'll increase the amount of available mobile hotspots. Also, there's been some digital content that has arisen as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, most people were not able to go to the library, so more digital content was provided. Hoopla, Mango Language, and this Ancestry Library Edition, which has to do with genealogy and local history. In addition to those programs in the library, there's also some projects that have been completed, about $1.3 million. There's been some renovation at the New Hope Library. We were there a couple weeks ago conducting a community budget meeting, but there's going to be more planned for that as well. And our Children's Play and Learn patio here at the main library has now opened. That opened in the latter part of March of this year. So those things will demonstrate how we're spending those cannabis public benefit funds in the library. Now to shift over to our Parks and Recreation. There's been some youth programs funded by nonprofits. Some of that includes the STEM program, arts, dance, and domestic violence prevention. So those we've engaged with nonprofit agencies that can specialize in providing those services to our youth. Our zoo has also done some programming as well. Nature Lab, Wednesday Story Time, a lot of different connections to connect our youth with our local Santa Ana Zoo. We've also opened the Memorial Pool, a year-round aquatics program. And this past year, they had an enrollment of 300 youth that had participated in their programs. The Parks and Recreation also does monthly excursions. So there took about 250 youth to either amusement park or some whale watching, sporting events, theater, and other events that they have programmed throughout the year. In addition, youth paid internship program run through our community development agency on Flower and the Civic Center has what they call the Santa Ana Youth Employment Program, and they administer that program. And this most recent information says they had a total of 500 youth that have been assisted and about 127 are enrolled. And so that's something that youth can come and get valuable experience, work experience, and entry into the workplace as well. Also, we have projects, again, that are ongoing at various stages. So the city's going to do splash pads at various locations, and the proposed locations for those splash pads are at the zoo, Memorial Park, Thornton Park, El Salvador Park, Cesar Chavez Park, and also Madison Park. So while they're not constructed, they are being designed. We've also had 7 fitness courts installed, and there's going to be a butterfly exhibit opening up. If it's not already open, since April 15th. If it's not already open, it's probably going to be opening up soon at the zoo. And the zoo also has a Zoo Goat escape project, which is currently in the design phase. And so all these dollars here represent actual expenses that we've incurred during February and will be ongoing expenses throughout the rest of the year. Lastly, some upcoming projects. Again, these are projects that have not been started yet, but are still plans to do so. We have 2 ones that I really like to talk about. One of them is the Recreation Mobile Program. And this is, again, kind of similar to the Bookmobile, where the city will go out to different neighborhoods and have some recreation programs. So it brings the parks to all the local neighborhoods. And then the other thing I like to highlight is something that's similar offered by the zoo. A traveling zoo exhibit, free program. Zoo staff travel to various park locations and present on a variety of topics. So it's one way, if people can't make it to the zoo can come back to the community. Also, we have a youth scholarship program. So if youth are interested in participating in a variety of programs and need some assistance, you can also get a scholarship to help you enroll in those various youth sports programs handled by our Parks and Recreation Agency. And then one of our big projects that'll be upcoming is a new soccer field at Santa Anita Park. One of the things I'm really excited, one of the things that our staff here in the budget office has undertaken was implementing a budget engagement simulation tool, or BEST program. We launched it in March 24, and it allows you to play around with the budget. It's a really cool engagement and really simple tool, and allows you to increase budgets or decrease budgets. And then you see some of the issues that would arise if you increase the budget and there's only so much money, you might have a deficit. If you decrease budget and you don't increase anything else, then well, maybe you'll have a surplus. And so what we ask you to do is engage in this program. And then after you're done engaging it, and maybe you've made the budget the way you would like, then you go ahead and click the submit button, and that provides us information that we can share with City Council. So that's one part of the best software. And another part is what we like to call the prioritize. And this is where we give you $11 million. And out of that $11 million, you can go ahead and choose and select a variety of different programs and see how you can fund those programs. Now, you can't fund everything, but you can fund most things, and you'll have to decide which ones are more important. There's also an option for you to provide what you would like to see. And so you can put in, there's an other tab, and you can go ahead and put your ideas in there as well. And you can go ahead and select and submit that as part of your budget request. And you can send that information to us. And so as you do that, that lets us know how the community likes to prioritize their budget dollars. So it could be maybe homeless shelter services, economic development, and maybe youth and prevention programs are most important to you. And then maybe next is sidewalks and graffiti abatement. Maybe those are some other things. So we ask that you would take some time, fill out the prioritize tool. And again, you can go ahead and submit your information, and we'll collect that information, evaluate the data, and see what it's telling us. And then we'll share that with the city council and city manager so they can make decisions, and we can tell them this is what we heard from the community. And that's one of the things I always like to tell you is there's a variety of ways in which you can provide your input. By attending this budget community meeting, you can provide us your input here. You can also still call us and provide us your input. We'll be more than happy to take your phone call or give you a call back if we're not available, and take your information and document it and share it with the city council. You can also email us at budgetoffice@santa-ana.org. You can provide us your ideas and your input and what you would like to see. We also have online survey, and we have it in all 3 languages, in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We put the links here. A copy of this presentation is also available on the city's website. If you go, and we've recently revamped the website, so it looks a little different, but if you go and you find the finance department, you just click on the budget office or anything that says city budget, and it'll get you to the surveys, and you can get it in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Lastly, I talked about our simulation tool. And so we have the simulation tool to play with and for you to submit, but we also have the prioritize tool, and those are available in multiple languages as well. So you can provide your input in that way as well. The other way I always tell people is share this information with other people, your friends, your neighbors, and go ahead and share it with them and ask them to, hey, complete the survey or try our budget engagement simulation tool. So there's just a variety of ways in which you can provide input to us so we can share with the city council and the city manager. Lastly, kind of what are the next steps after today? You can see we've done a variety of community budget meetings already. We had a Comlink meeting to kind of kick us off in late March. We were at New Hope Library on April 11th. Last week, April 18th at the Pentecostal Church, April 20th, Delhi Center. Today is our virtual meeting at April 26th. Tomorrow we'll be at the Chamber of Commerce on the south side of town. On May 2nd, we'll be here at El Salvador Park, right down the street from City Hall on Civic Center Drive. And on May 4th will be the Youth Commission. That meeting will be virtual as well. We will post the link as soon as we get the information. We will post the link on our website, and that'll begin a little bit early. That'll begin at 4:30. All the other meetings begin like this one did today at 6 p.m. So those are opportunities where you can provide information. Also, you can talk to the city council directly at these upcoming meetings. The first 2 meetings on here are May 12th, and that'll be a special city council workshop that's dedicated solely on the budget. And it's where our department, the finance department, will share a lot of information, a lot of different things about what we have accumulated through the surveys, through results, through direct community input. And we'll share that with the city council. We'll also share with them some other information and preliminary in the budget. But it's an opportunity for you to also speak on the budget. So you can attend the meeting, provide your input. I know they have, you can call in, you can also speak in person at May 12th. You can also do the same thing at a May 17th meeting, which will provide another budget presentation, a little bit more update based on the feedback we get from these meetings, as well as the May 12th meeting. So on May 17th, we'll be holding another budget workshop. Again, you can provide your input there either by phone or come in person at City Hall. Then lastly, we have our City Council meetings on June 7th and June 21st. This is more of a really more formal part of presenting the budget to the City Council. Department heads will share their goals and highlights and what their plans are for their departments. But again, it's a public meeting, so you can go ahead and provide your input by phone, in person on June 7th and June 21st. And so with that, I think that concludes my presentation. And we're myself and Catherine Downs were available to answer questions, or I definitely want your input and would appreciate if you would go ahead and share that. We have the interpreters in both Spanish and Vietnamese, so they can translate it back to us and we can go ahead and take notes. But we'll do our best to answer any questions you have and any comments you have right now. So I'll just turn it back over to Margarita.
Thank you, Budget Manager Waldo Varela. You shared a lot of important information, a lot of important critical dates. And as you were sharing links, I just also shared additional links to other important meetings scheduled this week. For example, the Section 8 info sessions and another session on the homelessness action plan scheduled for tomorrow. So there's a lot of information being shared to everyone, including the links to the presentation tonight that the budget team has delivered. So that's also available, as Waldo referenced, on the links that we have on the chat, but you can also look at the budget page, the finance page on the city's website. So now this is the more interesting part, right? Where we're wanting to, field questions from the audience and also just to hear you out. So as a reminder, if you would like to participate and ask a question, please raise your hand. We can call on you. Or some of you have already communicated to us using the chat box or the question box. So you have those options to be able to let us know. So let's start with any hands raised. If anybody wants to ask a question or share a priority with the team, if you can raise your hand on the Zoom and we will call on you. Okay, so we will call on Celica Diaz. Celica, go ahead, Celica, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and if you can, because we have the interpreters, they reminded us earlier, if you can if you can speak at a moderate pace, not too fast and not too slow, so that we can all hear your question.
Okay, I would like to find out what could be the possibilities of getting the lights on the bike trail replaced to LEDs? How long would it take? Or is it included in any of the budgets?
What we can do, we've gotten some questions similar to yours on specific types of issues. And what you can do is you can do one of two ways. You can email us at budgetoffice@santa-ana.org and email us. You were saying lights on a bike trail. I was trying to write it down as quickly as possible. But if you can email us that information, and then what we'll do is we respond and forward it to the appropriate person. More than likely, this would probably either be Parks or Public Works, since it's the bike trail. But we would take your information and forward it to the appropriate department and ask them to respond. And we'll make sure we CC you as well.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Waldo, can you repeat the email so we can include it on the chat?
So the email is budgetoffice, no space, @santa-ana.org.
Okay, so the community can email their priorities or specific questions to the team using that.
That's correct. It's a group email, so it doesn't just go to me, it goes to me and my staff. So if one of us is not here, somebody will be able to take your input and then provide a response or follow up with you.
Excellent,
And
thank
Celica,
you.
I'd like also to add that in your email, please include which bike path or bike trail you're specifically interested in, because we actually do have quite a few funded projects for various bike trails around the cities. So the lighting for the bike trail that you're interested in may actually already be funded. So it'd be helpful
Oh.
if you could include that information.
Yeah, it would be the one starting from Chestnut Avenue to McFadden. That's a little section of, what belongs to my neighborhood association, which is Pacific Park.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celica. Do we have any other hands raised? Frank, do we have anything on the Q&A box or on the chat?
No, I don't see anything else.
Okay. Okay, so Celica has raised her hand again. Go ahead, Celica.
Hi, I'm sorry. I have another question. What would be the possibility or in the future if we can be able to use the section that is also belongs to the Santa Ana Unified School District at the Roosevelt Walker Community Center, the back area that looks like a track, to use it like a community, what do you call it, like a double use, which the community can use it as well as the school district?
Thank you, Celica. I know that the city is working towards a partnership with the school district a little bit more. We've had a lot of joint use programs that have been, in fact, Roosevelt Walker was one of the joint use agreements that we have. I don't know if it's still ongoing, but that's something we can certainly share, that there's a desire for the Roosevelt Walker to a portion of it to be used as for the community, maybe in more specific ways than what it was used. But the city did have a partnership. And like I said, I'm not sure if they continue to have a partnership with the school district on Roosevelt Walker, but that was one of the first joint use programs, maybe about 8-10 years ago. But Catherine, I don't know if there's anything else we have on the joint use programs, but that's what I recall.
I would encourage you, Celica, to just include all of your detailed questions like that, and we will respond to every single one of them, or we will make sure that somebody responds to every single one of them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Celica, again for the question. So we have our interpreter, Nancy Gallardo. We have a question in Spanish. Okay, so with Marta, I would just turn to the same suggestion that Catherine had about a little bit more specifics, like which streets, right? Which red curbs, and where the parking issue is a problem or it needs a response from the city. Do we have?
Yeah, that's correct, Margarita. The more information we have, especially when it comes to public works type projects, the better it is to give to them, because they'll know exactly what location and what person may be dealing with that issue. So the more information that can be provided to us would be great.
Okay. Let's see. So Nancy, is Marta on the line on the Spanish line with you? Yes, yes, please. So as we're waiting for Marta to ask her question, we saw that we had another question regarding first-time home buyer assistance, down payment assistance, information that Catherine had shared on the chat. So that's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so Marta
Sí,
has,
mire, buenas tardes. Sí, mire, nos urgen que nos arreglen lo de las calles, de otro de lo de la construcción, que o sea, los apresuren, por favor, porque nuestros carros se están deteriorando bastante y todo alrededor del centro de la 4, lo que es la Primera, la Santana Boulevard, la Main y todos los alrededores de los apartamentos de edificios están pintando las líneas rojas para que no se pueda parquear la gente y están dando muchos tickets. Entonces necesitamos que nos den lugar para que los carros se parqueen, porque las familias tienen de 4 carros, porque tienen hijos grandes y pues se necesita, y son muchos tickets lo que está dando la ciudad en estos meses.
okay, so it's regarding the
Sí, gracias.
Thank you, Marta. So this is regarding the enforcement and the lack of parking along 4th Street and Main in the downtown area. That's what I heard. So, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Marta Garcia. Do we have any other questions? Anybody else who would like to raise their hand? I see Carla Juarez, and that's a familiar face. So, Carla, did you have a question?
Thank you, Margarita. I was looking at the links that were provided.
Yes.
And I will be like submitting my recommendations. But something that does come that's concerning is the money from for houseless folks. I didn't hear much about that. I don't know if you'll have time to share like how much of the budget will be going to helping folks.
For the unhoused, resources for the unhoused community here?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Waldo or Catherine?
Yeah, I'll start off. There's some money dedicated in the Revive program to help with homelessness. There's also money currently being spent on the general fund. A large portion of it does come from these state or federal grants. So there is a lot of resources available that we try and connect with. But there are monies available. And in this year's budget, we're planning to include kind of a list of how much is spent on homelessness in general as well. But there's also a variety of just general resources that we have in regards to homelessness or in response. We talked about the SMART team and some of those things that are being funded through the Revive program. And then we have just kind of general issues to deal with homelessness to help them find housing throughout the city as much as possible and try to assist them to find housing, temporary housing, to get them their resources that they need. So that would be kind of my general response. There are resources available that the city has, but there are also broader resources available, probably also through the county as well.
Catherine, did you want to add to that or?
No, I think Waldo covered it pretty well. It's difficult for us to put a specific number on how much we're spending. We can do it, but it takes quite a bit of analysis because actually most every single one of our departments is doing something to support the effort for homelessness. And it's spread all over the city's budget. And what I was going to do here was share a page with everyone that includes some of the services that we provide, a data dashboard, how to get in contact with people, response teams, et cetera. So there's a lot of good resources on our website. And I encourage you to go ahead and check it out. Let's see here. And there's the link right there for you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I'm also tying this back to the Homeless Services Division of the city. There's a community listening session to talk about the action plan regarding homelessness or the unhoused, community. So I'm gonna drop that link. It's one of the many events happening in the city, but I think that one, Carla, ties also to what you're looking for. And thank you, Waldo, for dropping in the information on CityNet.
Yeah, CityNet is one of them that's covered under the Revive program. So they provide services, not just on the phone calls, but it's something you can refer them to. And that's open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So there are ways we can call and they can connect them with the resources.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you for your questions and always for participating on our different meetings. Do we have any other attendee who would like to ask a question? Or Frank, do we have anything on the Q&A?
No, there's nothing on the Q&A.
Okay. Okay, so Waldo, did you want to have any closing comments?
Yeah, I would just like to say to all the members of the public who either, responded our survey, those people have put stuff in the chat that Margarita will share with us for us to incorporate. We really just appreciate the opportunity to engage you in a variety of different ways. This is just another way for us to get community input. And now that we're kind of back to some normalcy, it's definitely, we're trying to do as much outreach as we possibly can to get as much information on what the public wants to see in the upcoming fiscal year 22-23 city budget. So I just want to say thank you to all the public for their participation and continue to let others know about future community budget meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our interpreters and to the community who was able to participate tonight for our meeting, our annual community budget meeting. This time it's a series, so it's really great to get everyone's ideas and priorities. Okay, good night, everyone.